Ooh, hey, what is up? Yeah, had to take a minute to decompress a little bit after what I just watched for sure. That was something right there. My goodness gracious. Like I said, I had to take a minute to hey, how's it going, everyone? I kind of had to take a minute and kind of, you know, decompress a little bit after what I just watched. That was something. That was something for sure. I mean, yeah, how's it going? Yeah, just I almost feel like I need a little bit of a minute here. Yeah, I mean, to tell you the truth, I remember watching the very end of that episode a few minutes ago, and I'm so immersed in the storyline of Howard sort of finally coming and confronting Jimmy and Kim on what happened. I completely forgot about the fact that the episode title was Plan and Execution. I completely forgot about that component of the storyline completely. It almost didn't even it slipped my mind completely. And then, my goodness, talk about an ending for sure. I mean, I don't know if anyone had Lalo. Spoiler alert! I don't know if anyone had Lalo killing Howard in the death pool. I mean, people had a lot of theories in respect to Howard's death, but Lalo killing Howard, that was a twist for sure. Hey, how's it going, Niner? How's it going? So, my goodness, talk about talk about a twist there that I did not see coming whatsoever. Um, yeah, literal plan and execution. My goodness, that was just unbelievable writing. I mean, I remember just kind of going back and kind of thinking to myself that Breaking Bad's ending wasn't really as dark as I thought it would be. It was dark in many respects, but I think, my goodness, what they just did to Howard there, that just sort of next level. The way they just sort of set him up like that, and they sort of, humanize him even more, and sort of set him up as a character. And then, the last sort of experience he has in this universe is that horrible humiliation that Jimmy and Kim make him suffer at the mediation meeting, and then you know then it all comes down for Howard at the end of that episode in Jimmy and Kim's apartment. So, hey Michael Curtis, how's it going? At Michael Curtis, how we feeling, Anton? Amazing episode, heartbreaking. I mean, yeah, I mean, a lot of people said Howard would meet his demise in this episode, but I don't know if they had this exact means of death. And yeah, at Beetle, that candle flickering was something you wondered what that was, and it was Lalo entering the apartment at the end of that episode. That was just something right there. Again, kind of an episode that reminds me a little bit of a rock and hard place where, initially I was just kind of planning on breaking it down, cold opening, act one, act two, act three, act four. But again, it's kind of like, how else do you begin, besides talking about the end of that episode? Yeah, I mean, the way the candle flickered, yeah, quite top notch stuff indeed at Michael Curtis. I mean, just unbelievable. Just my God. And yeah, I mean, as talk about, yeah, I mean, what I thought about is how when we first met Saul Goodman in the plot of Breaking Bad, he had gone through this entire experience with watching, Lalo Salamanca shoot Howard Hamlin in the head in Kim's apartment, and he still goes about his life, and he's going to come out unscathed in all this. For all intents and purposes, he's going to be a lawyer. He's going to sit at that office. He's going to be, exactly how he was when we saw him in the plot of Breaking Bad. So it is kind of interesting in that respect how he kind of gets off, scot free to an extent. I mean, he doesn't seem culpable in what just happens, but the no, Alex Wolf. Any chance Casper lived? I don't think so. Absolutely not. Definitely sort of implied there that he did not live after that confrontation with Howard. But again, it's kind of the big question is what happens to Kim Wexler, and it's definitely something I've thought about leading up to this season about how, yes, Kim's moral compass was able to sort of morph and bend where she's okay with being sort of bending the rules of morality and sort of altering the social contract and things to that extent. But my goodness, the chickens came home to roost for sure at the end of this episode. Sort of all of Jimmy's sort of, decisions to be an amigo of the cartel, it all came back to haunt him here. Yeah, that's a great point at Facade Games. It definitely did remind me of Ozymandias in some respects about how, even though Walter White didn't pull that trigger, he was definitely, his actions were definitely responsible for Hank Schrader's death there. And it is actually kind of interesting too. I definitely thought about how when Lalo Salamanca entered that apartment at the end of that episode, Saul still to that point thought he was dead. Of course, Kim knew he was still alive, but Kim never told him that Lalo was actually alive. And you do wonder how that may have altered their plan and going about what they did. And if Jimmy knew that Lalo was still alive, kind of it seemed like such a just an unnecessary sort of thing to for Kim to tell Jimmy, but in the end, it would have been extremely crucial. And man, yeah, words are kind of escaping me here. Yeah, it is. It's pretty crazy. I guess if they didn't go through with that plan, if Kim just went to Santa Fe, of course, then Howard wouldn't have confronted them at the end of that episode. And again, it is kind of interesting because Lalo wants to talk with Saul and Kim, and I think it's pretty damn clear that Lalo's not going to kill Kim. And we've even sort of seen as much. There's sort of a behind the scenes fan footage that was leaked of spoiler alert here if you don't want me here to have me talk about apparent behind the scenes fan footage that was released for I guess the second part of a season uh, 6 of Better Call Saul, but I don't think there's any way that Lalo's going to kill Kim here. I mean, based on the filming that I've seen, it's not going to happen. And you do wonder, though. I mean, he kills Howard because he would have been a loose end there, and he kills him with impunity. I mean, no problem. He's going to sleep like a baby at night. Kind of a very interesting scene of him sleeping, a kind of callback to season 5, the end of season 5. But again, you wonder what happens when he says, "Let's talk," and they are going to talk for of course they're going to talk, but you just wonder what happens to Jimmy and Kim after that sort of situation where you're just going to have a Howard Hamlin with a bullet in his head in the middle of Kim's apartment. I mean, it is kind of it is kind of interesting because I feel like kind of Saul seems to almost have outlived his usefulness for Lalo too. He could probably make a Saul and Kim talk and then seemingly kill Saul and Kim. Like, why is he going to keep? I mean, I guess we don't know with Kim, but I'm pretty sure. Like, why is he going to keep Saul alive after he talks with him? So whatever Saul tells him, I mean, he's going to have another useful sort of purpose after he talks to Saul because he could have just killed him. I mean, if he just gets to like Lalo is definitely a type of person who once he has no more use for you, he just gives you the coup de grace. So at Devontae Mariki, Kim and Jim don't deserve a good ending. Garbage people. I mean, talk about just the sort of ambiguousness of all of this. It's kind of like in the grand scheme of things, it really. I mean, obviously, knowing what happened, it wasn't worth it. I mean, like Clifford Maine said, the settlement was probably a year or two away. And of course, Kim sort of justified this entire action at the end of season 5 of Better Call Saul. And thank you so much for the super chat again at Devontae Mariki. She sort of justified it as, we're just tearing down one lawyer. We're going to keep him standing. We're going to help so many people with this pro bono practice. And, it's sort of, there's a lot of rationale behind that decision. And you can sort of understand where Kim is coming from. But yeah, it's kind of the sort of altered sort of, opinion about these two characters is definitely something to think about for sure. And I've talked about this in the past for sure. I definitely did not see Howard Hamlin as a bad person whatsoever. And very ironically, because he was sort of presented to us as a sort of Darth Vader character during season 1 of A Better Call Saul. And, he really kind of was the most morally upstanding character in this entire series. In hindsight, it's actually quite ironic to tell you the truth. And it's just so crazy to think about how when we were watching season 1 of Better Call Saul and we see Howard and Jimmy interacting in the conference room at HHM in the very first episode entitled Uno, and we of course know that this character Lalo is going to come into the storyline eventually because of Saul Goodman's notorious piece of backstory from the plot of Breaking Bad in season 2 of Better Call Saul in season 2 of Breaking Bad in the episode entitled Better Call Saul. We all know Lalo's eventually going to have to come into the story, but to think Lalo is going to kill Howard Hamlin, I mean, that trailer there, I mean, things not going down the way we think it is, the way we think it will go down. I mean, like I talked about a little bit earlier in the stream, I think a lot of people saw Howard dying, but I mean, I don't know how you could have formed a sort of, logical continuation of Lalo eventually killing Howard Hamlin. So, again, kind of very interesting scene at the very end where I guess we can kind of work backwards with this episode where I guess sort of in Act 3 where I think Lalo is preparing to call Hector, and he definitely notices a sort of a static signal. So I think he absolutely understands that Mike had bugged the phone line at Casa Tranquila, and that's what causes Lalo to change his course of action, where he then calls Hector, but of course tells him fake information. Where we then see Mike talk to Gus Fring at. Spoiler alert, it wasn't JP Wynn, and Walter White and Jesse Pinkman did not appear in this episode, so we definitely can't listen to IMDb anymore. That is totally, not reliable whatsoever. But, he gave Hector that false information where he's going to go on an all-out assault for Gus Fring. And that then explains why no one was watching Jimmy and Kim's house, because Mike said to Gus that he pulled off all of the men off the soft targets, including the laundry. I think it was sort of implied that the laundry was a soft target that they pulled off. And I guess Jimmy and Kim's house was a soft target as well, and that's why Mike's PI or Mike's men were not watching him when Lalo was able to get into the house. And if they were still there, they absolutely would have been watching him. So at Nick Russ, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. This was the first time feeling genuinely sad over a character death in this show, maybe ever. His story is so tragic. Hopefully, either Lalo or Kim takes a fall for this. I've talked about this. I really didn't find, in hindsight, I feel like Jesse Pinkman's sort of story could have been one of the greatest tragic parables of all time if he died. But this right here, this sort of even trumps the death Gail Bedecker, which I thought was just unbelievably tragic and very, very extremely morally ambiguous in respect to Jesse's actions and Gail sort of being, caught in the crossfire here. And Howard Hamlin's death here, just based on what I was, talking about how he wasn't a bad guy at all, and he was truly someone who was striving for just inner peace. And with everything he's gone through in his life, and he was a human being with problems like we all are, and definitely wasn't a bad guy whatsoever. And in hindsight, Jimmy and Kim really just used him as a pawn to be kind of used and discarded. And like I talked about earlier in the stream at Nick Russ, the chickens really came home to roost in respect to they kind of. Again, I'm not too well versed in the Greek classics, but maybe either Icarus or what's the other one, or hubris. The parable of hubris, Jimmy and Kim just thinking, we're just doing these little things here. Nothing's going to happen. Everything will be fine. We're just, these are almost small little pranks here. We're not really toying with fate. And they absolutely were. And you do want, I talked about this. Thank you again so much for the super chat, Nick Russ. And I'll absolutely get to the other super chats as well. I apologize, but just kind of getting on to here for Nick Russ first. But yeah, I talked about how Kim was just, definitely someone who was sort of embracing this Saul Goodman persona, but you really wonder how far past the red line can she go. Eventually Saul Goodman is going to be that character who says, we really should kill these people to tie up loose ends, like, suggesting that you send Hank on a trip to Belize to Walter White, and sort of, also, telling Walter White that Jesse's kind of an old Yeller situation at Nick Russ. So again, yeah, it's quite the ambiguous sort of very tragic parable here, man. I could go on forever about it, and I really appreciate the super chat for sure. And I'll definitely plan on making some videos in the days to come about that storyline. So again, it's quite intense there. A lot of rumination needed, and I really appreciate the super chat for sure. So at Maximum Rock and Roll, I was hoping to see you tonight after this. Sorry, I missed that chat there. At Maximum Rock and Roll, I was hoping to see you tonight after this episode, Anton. Well, yeah, here I am, and I really appreciate the super chat, Maximum Rock and Roll. The support really means a lot. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And getting to this other chat here, but at Mendoza's Coyote, Howard's death hit me harder than any other Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad character, even way more than Nacho. He was at the wrong place at the wrong time. Rip Howard Hamlin. Yeah, man, absolutely. You can say, well, that it seems so, again, there's so many sort of coincidences here that in the grand scheme of the universe have probably an extremely small likelihood of ever happening in the grand scheme of things. But, these things do happen in life where, these horrible tragedies happen to people who are just at the wrong place at the wrong time. And that's actually a very interesting literary vessel by which the creators, wrote this story. And I definitely don't think it's sort of, too outlandish or anything to that effect. I definitely think, these things happen. These sort of very sort of, fragment of a percentage of coincidences happen in this universe. And just, it just is unbelievable. And I absolutely agree at Mendoza's Coyote. I remember the death of Gail Bedecker was one that really hit me for sure in the plot of Breaking Bad, as someone who, his death was just so, really tough to sort of, truly just grasp all the sort of, ambiguity and the sort of nuance behind Gail Bedecker's death, for sure. But yeah, this one has absolutely, man, that was tough to watch. That ending was about, 10 times darker than I even thought it was. And I talked about it a little bit earlier in the stream, how, I was so wrapped up in Howard finally confronting Jimmy and Kim and saying, he's going to land on his feet. He's going to be okay despite this embarrassment. Kind of letting bygones be bygones. I completely spaced on the fact that the title was Plan and Execution, and we hadn't yet really seen that sort of double meaning of that execution at Mendoza's Coyote. So yeah, definitely planning on, ruminating on this for a couple of days and definitely sort of, putting my thoughts out there. And I really appreciate the super chat at Mendoza's Coyote. And this one hit me as well. I agree completely. At Devonte Maricki. So Lalo gets in the lab. Then what? Isn't he going to look like a fool? There's only a crane there. I'm not seeing that how that's enough for Eladio. Thoughts? Yeah, really good question at Devonte Maricki. And also, before I get to that, Mendoza's cat. Oh, that was already there. I think. Yeah, I didn't miss that one. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. So getting to Devonte Maricki, thank you so much again for the super chat. But yeah, I mean, that's a very interesting point you make there. So again, kind of working backwards in this episode because I kind of feel like it's sort of necessary here, just based on the ending of this episode. So anyway, when we see Lalo place that call to Hector, the point was to get Mike off of the soft targets. I think, including the laundry. I think again, it was kind of ambiguous with the dialogue there, where Gus says, "What about the laundry?" and Mike says that Tyrus is there with his men. A couple people are there, or maybe it is more sort of, again, it was kind of ambiguous whether or not people were coming and going. I have to kind of sort of still kind of go back and rewatch it then. But again, I kind of talked about this in my previous live stream at Devonte Maricki, and how the big sort of crux here is sort of Gus Fring's intentions. And it's sort of where, if Don Eladio finds out about this underground structure, as he says to Don Eladio, as Lalo says to Don Eladio in that video, he says it's kind of up for you to decide. Where I know what he's planning. He's planning on a sort of meth super lab. Gus Fring will have a story. And yeah, there's not really sort of absolute proof, but there is this sort of big suspicion here, Devonte Maricki, is of why Gus Fring is building this lab in the first place. Why was he being so secretive about it? Why was he being so intentional about covering up his tracks? So these all bring up red flags in terms of the cartel suspicions. And if they ever did find out that in the grand scheme of things, that Gus Fring was trying to, take out the entire cartel and have his own means of production on the north side of the border, again, that would be very bad news for Gus Fring. Of course, they never do find out in the end, as I've talked about in a past live stream, because, as we know from season 3 of Breaking Bad, the episode entitled IFT, that Gus Fring was still in charge of the north side of the border. That was his territory, excuse me. I tried to say it in Spanish there and misspoke, but yeah, again, it's sort of up to Don Eladio. It's kind of a he said sort of thing where, there is this structure, and I guess Eladio, like I said, could sort of raise all these questions about why was he hiding this. And Lalo even said so in this episode that he'll have his story, I'm sure a good one, sort of insinuating that he's a very good, articulator of, his words. He's very well, he's very able, he would be able to craft a good alibi here for sure. So, but it's definitely going to come into play for sure with that sort of Chekhov's gun that we've seen placed in the lab already, and Lalo sort of right outside the lab. And again, that cold opening scene was really something, and I'll definitely get to it for sure. But yeah, that's kind of how I see it for sure. I've talked about that, Devontae Maverick, and I really appreciate the super chat. So yeah. At Daniel, thank you again for the super chats. Right here. So this is dark, but I feel like I feel like they're gonna stage Howard's death as a suicide, and everyone will believe it. Only Jimmy and Kim will know the truth. Very interesting theory there, at Daniel. You do wonder again, because I talked about, that's a very interesting theory there. I mean, that's a great thing to kind of think about initially for sure. And I talked about this a little earlier in my stream about how, seemingly that, because Lalo just likes to tie up loose ends. The expression sort of slips me here, but he just likes to, take care of loose ends with no problem. He's obviously, based on the backstory of Breaking Bad, going to keep Saul alive. And based on sort of what we've seen with the behind the scenes filming, Kim too. And the question is why? Because after he speaks with them, they're still going to have a purpose. And then, obviously, after Lalo leaves, like, wouldn't they just go right to the police? Maybe. I mean, maybe they're worried about their sort of culpability here. I mean, they definitely be in trouble for some things, and sort of they'd have to sort of tell the truth about everything they were planning. And there were definitely some things that were illegal for sure. I mean, probably some things that could be deemed like, felony fraud. Maybe, again, I'm not a sort of, I'm not a lawyer or anything like that, but I imagine some actual charges of like bearing false witness and would again, I don't know exactly the legal terminology here, but that's actually, I really thought about that, about, Lalo is going to leave and Saul and Kim are still going to be alive, and a dead Howard Hamlin's going to be in that apartment. How are they going to justify that story? And my goodness, that would be dark if Saul says, all right, time to pretend this was a suicide, and then I'm Saul Goodman. I'm just going to go live my life, and I'm going to think nothing of this. It is what it is. And Kim Wexler not being able to, stand the guilt. That's a very interesting theory for sure, Daniel. And I mean, my goodness, we're going to have 7 long weeks, excuse me, to ruminate on it. So really appreciate the super chat there for sure. At Jonathan Baker, I thought they would end Howard's story arc like Ted Beneke and hurt him while he was high, but not kill him. Love the streams, Anton. Thank you. Again, very kind words there, Jonathan Barker. I really appreciate the super chat. Thank you so much for the support. And yeah, I definitely kind of working backwards here. Just kind of the nature of this episode, kind of going back to that unbelievable, in hindsight, I mean, my God, I almost feel kind of bad, like how funny I found that scene. But, the scene where he's administered the sort of drug that causes his pupils to dilate, and, that unbelievable scene there where it turns out that the PI was in cahoots with Jimmy and Kim, as I sort of, ruminated on in a past live stream as being a possibility. Again, I don't want to, I definitely don't take credit for that. It was just kind of one of the many possible theories that I was sort of surmising about. Is it possible just based on the photos? And it turns out it was true. But I mean, that just an unbelievably hilarious scene where he switches the photos with the sound guy, and Howard looks crazy because there's a guy with a mustache there, and just quite the story there. And it was kind of like, I thought that scene was funny. And, you definitely felt very bad for Howard in the moment based on everything I've already said about him, not deserving any of this. But in the grand scheme of things, you're like, all right, he'll land on his feet again. He's sort of, he's being the bigger man here. He's like, not rolling around in the dirt with Jimmy and Kim. He's not sinking to their level in many respects. And I kind of, again, I really thought that as well. As the story was ending, I was like, I guess Howard's going to make it here. And then again, I'm not even joking. It completely slipped my mind, the title of this episode. I mean, it didn't slip my mind, but I completely it wasn't in the forefront of my mind at all, the execution double meaning. And I was just so immersed in the storyline of Howard finally confronting Jimmy and Kim, because that was just an unbelievable scene in and of itself. But then again, I did wonder what that candle meant, the candle flickering. And then just to see Jimmy and Kim's reaction, I'm like, it's Lalo. I mean, it only can be Lalo. And just an unbelievable sort of, culmination of the storyline. Just unbelievable writing. Again, I don't like to get too sort of caught up in sort of awards in film and television, because it's just a subjective thing. It's just one person's judgment over another. But my goodness, if this isn't good story writing, deserving of awards that I know that the creators care about, I mean, I don't know what is. I mean, wow. Talk about, I know a lot of people were talking about how we kind of had a slower sort of a lot of setup story here. In respect to this storyline, and there was a lot of plot development episodes, and man, what a payoff! I mean, a payoff is kind of a sort of what's the word I'm looking for here? I don't know, maybe not the best way to put it, but wow, just wow, what who knew it would all sort of build to this? So again, again, I was not. I mean, you would imagine it was going to be a dark episode, but again, just an unbelievable sort of just dragging us in here, where everything just seems to be going according to plan. It's just kind of a, I wouldn't say a normal episode, but things are all right. It's kind of, things are just progressing, and then just the absolute I didn't see it coming. It's unbelievable the way that I was just so. It's almost like they sort of like dangled out this distraction of this storyline going on with Howard Hamlin, that despite the fact that this title said plan and execution, it was still a surprise, because I was so immersed in the subplot here that I didn't see the execution coming at the end of the episode. It was just unbelievable story writing here. Yeah, my goodness, you two are soulless. That is quite the line there at Joe Blow that Howard said to them. So, and yeah, really great cold opening for sure. Again, Valentine Alaya, excuse me on that name, but yeah, where we basically see that Casper gave up that information. Again, a very good way to craft that story, where we didn't have to see that conversation, but it's definitely implied to us that he told him about Lavanderia Brillante, and where we see Lalo going through the sort of sewer system to get a place where he can spy on them without being detected. Very sort of, again, really painting Lalo as this absolute evil genius. I mean, really kind of a next level sort of character, really kind of on par with like an Anton Chigurh or a sort of Hans Landa from Inglourious Bastards, really taking Lalo to this next level of evil genius. So again, that's a whole nother story right there. So just unbelievable. So at Just Dan, thank you so much for this, the super chat. I really appreciate it. Dude, that was probably the best ending to an episode in the entirety of Better Call Saul. Also, Anton, keep up the awesome work, bro. Again, your words are too kind, man. I'm almost embarrassed by how nice those words are, but I really appreciate it, Dan. And actually, it was actually really funny. Right about when I was going live yesterday, Thomas Schnauz, I believe, who was the writer and director of this episode today, tweeted last night and said that initially this season was supposed to be excuse me, hit the mic there, was supposed to be shown 13 episodes continuously, and there was not supposed to be a sort of a split season designation, and due to filming delays, including Bob Odenkirk's heart attack, that they had to split the season 7 and 6. And so he warned and said, not unfortunately, but just be warned that this is not a traditional cliffhanger to end a season of a Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad, kind of alluding to that. So total sort of, misdirection there, really kind of getting people to have their guard down, saying, oh, this was just going to be a regular episode. And, the 7th episode, it wasn't supposed to be a real kind of cliffhanger. It's going to be a cliffhanger, but not a major one. So definitely total misdirection there at Just Dan. And yeah, what an ending. I mean, not just to an episode, but to a talk about, I mean, I guess we can kind of conclude this to a sort of season. I mean, kind of up there with Hank Schrader's literal oh shit moment to conclude part 1 of season 5 of Breaking Bad. So yeah, quite the ending to the season here. I definitely thought, I'm like, oh well, this ending's not going to be that great because of that, the fact that this wasn't initially written to be a sort of an end to a season. But man, that was definitely a sort of misdirection there by Thomas Schnauz. And thank you again, Just Dan, for the super chat. I really appreciate it. And I definitely agree with your assessment about this being quite the ending to an episode. At Devontae Maricki, thank you again so much for the super chat. So does this confirm why Mike despises Saul in Breaking Bad? Lalo using Saul to trick Gus and Mike, and to trick Gus and Mike, and obviously going to tell what happened in the desert. Yeah, that's a very interesting component of the storyline that I've talked about in many past live streams about how Saul's notorious piece of dialogue in the desert is very important to the story, of course, but also the fact that Mike is his PI and was right there and, of course, did jobs for him the very first time we saw him in the season 2 finale of Breaking Bad in the episode entitled ABQ, when he cleaned up Jane's body. He said to Jesse that Saul Goodman sent me, so he's still working for Saul Goodman, despite the fact he's also working for Gus Fring. And this sort of story here, where obviously Mike is probably going to figure out what happened, and yeah, I imagine he's going to be quite upset with Saul here for what he did. I mean, I guess it really doesn't impact Gus too much. Howard's sort of collateral damage, I guess, in a respect. I would imagine that it sort of more impacts Saul and Kim more than even impacts Gus Fring. Excuse me, but yeah, definitely a very crucial component of this, sort of Mike's relationship to Gus, and also the fact, like I've talked about in a previous stream, how if his sort of coming to blows with Lalo Salamanca, which seems kind of inevitable here, if that happens, and he's definitely going to be in the know about it, and Saul's going to be very afraid of Lalo coming after him and killing him, because of course Saul still thinks that Lalo is alive, seemingly, in the desert in season 2 of Breaking Bad. But if Mike's his PI and Mike killed Lalo, maybe, or he knows that Lalo was dead, then why wouldn't Mike tell Saul that Lalo was dead? So again, a lot of nuance here, and yeah, it's definitely something I've talked about, and definitely a very nuanced component of the storyline that you imagine has to factor into this, the rest of the story going forward at Devontae Maricki. So yeah, definitely a big component of this, and I actually hadn't considered that just now in the moment about what's Mike's reaction to this going to be. So yeah, that's again a very crucial component of the storyline for sure, and I really appreciate that the super chat at Devontae Maricki. At Blake Schreckenbach, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Does anyone know what episode Bob had hit the heart attack? He was running full out this episode. Patrick and Ray were present when it happened. Yeah, apparently, according to Thomas Schnauz last night in his tweets, he responded to someone else, and apparently it happened in, I mean, spoiler alert if you don't want to hear it here, but apparently, according to Thomas Schnauz, it happened in the premiere of part 2, the 8th episode, 608, apparently, according to Thomas Schnauz on the tweet that I read, at Blake Schreckenbach. Thank you so much for the super chat. And that's apparently when it happened. Again, you do wonder, I mean, I think, didn't Bob Odenkirk say that the scenes that he was doing, again, I'm not too well versed in the story there. I can't sort of, I don't want to ruminate on it too much or sort of, surmise on it too much, because I'm truly, I haven't read I'm not too well versed in the backstory behind that, about whether or not he had just done a scene or he was about to do a scene. I think he did say something about the fact he was, immersed in a certain scene, like currently filming or just finished filming, and that sort of maybe sort of exacerbated the sort of condition that he had and which caused him to have the heart attack. But apparently it happened. A long story long. It apparently happened in the next episode that we're going to see on July 11th at Blake Schreckenbach. And thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate the support. It really means a lot. At James Madalena, yeah, that is the big question right there about how after he called Hector, where I think his initial plan as he talked into that camera was to go into the super lab and kill everyone and videotape it and find the proof. But of course, when he found out that the line was being bugged, he then altered his plan so that he would, I guess, get all of the targets off of the soft location so he could talk to Saul. But again, what does he want to talk to Saul about at James Madalena? Again, I really don't know. That's a great question. And the big question is that after he talks to him, he's going to keep him alive. So it's not like he's just going to talk to him and kill him or something to that effect. But, it's a great question there. Yeah, at David Fox, what a cliffhanger. I agree for sure. So, yeah, it's just unbelievable. Just absolute cliffhanger. I mean, I'm still I was not expecting it to be that dark. What a twist. I mean, I needed to sort of decompress for a minute even before sort of, talking about it right now. So my goodness, what a cliffhanger. Yeah, at Chef Big Hat, yeah, I mean, yeah, no way the writers kill Howard and Kim. Again, I talked about it a little bit earlier in this stream. Again, spoiler alert, but there is behind the scenes fan footage of what appears to be a scene of Kim Wexler that we outside of the location she's currently in right now. So again, that's the first thing I thought about is that, after he tell whatever Lalo wants to talk to Saul and Kim about, why doesn't he kill them right there and then after, like, he definitely has a purpose for them. He wouldn't kill, like, I mean, Saul has a way with words, but why is he not going to kill him? Because we know for a fact that Saul is going to, go about his life and he's going to be this sort of person who has all these, crazy one-liners and like, is living his life and, becoming this criminal lawyer and doing exactly what he, was doing at the during this half season where he sets up this law practice and he's helping the sort of criminal underworld of Albuquerque. So really sort of what a cliffhanger. Yeah, talk about a cliffhanger to ruminate on for 7 long weeks for sure. So at Beef Testosterone, Saul has to tell Lalo something valuable. Yes, obviously. Again, maybe again, I'm trying to think. Maybe it's about Michael. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's about Michael. Maybe that's the sort of information that he wants. And actually, a very sort of interesting story there is that after he sees Michael and then plans, I think he calls maybe right before. I think it was after he called Hector. Then he saw Michael. But again, it's kind of an interesting sort of component of the storyline where Lalo knows who Michael is and Hector knows who Michael is. But again, like he doesn't seem crucial enough where either of them have brought them up to each other. So it's kind of a sort of interesting storyline here. But yeah, right off the top of my head, again, people sort of ask you in the chat, like, what information does he want? Again, maybe something to do with Michael. That makes the most logical sense to me. Again, does sort of Saul, is he sort of in the know about, does Lalo know that Saul knows Michael? Or again, I mean, it is, my God, what a piece of foreshadowing there where Kim meets with Mike in the El Camino diner, and where Mike says to Kim, like, oh, there's very small chance he comes after you. He has bigger fish to fry. But of course, I mean, it's Better Call Saul. Of course, it's all, like, as Howard Hamlin said, all roads lead back to you. And my goodness, was that sort of telling foreshadowing, in that teaser. I mean, yeah, I agree. At Jeff, that episode was bananas. Talk about a twist there. So I mean, yeah, it's just, I mean, kind of, like I said, kind of working backwards here. I mean, I feel like we talked about, I mean, the scene at the end. I mean, my goodness gracious, what a way to end that episode. But I mean, oh my goodness, I mean, just kind of going backwards here. I talked about Lalo hanging out in the sewer, the conversation he had with Hector. Again, we see the meeting. The meeting kind of, again, everything went according to plan for Jimmy and Kim. I mean, it's everything went according to plan. We see them, listening on the phone, reeling it in, and like it's kind of true. Like they did kind of leave him standing there, and yeah, you definitely felt bad for Howard in the moment. I almost kind of felt bad about laughing about the switching of the photos there. I mean, it was a hilarious scene. Very in hindsight, it's kind of it's not as funny in hindsight, but everything went according to plan. You see them sort of, celebrating, sort of, I guess, consummating the victory in the background. Kind of Howard. I mean, that's sort of, Howard kind of telling. I think a little bit might be kind of true about how they sort of, accusing them of getting off to it. About how they're sort of, that's how they're like, they're soulless. They're kind of they take pain in other people's suffering, according to Howard. So yeah, the plan everything went according to plan. Great scene in the conference room with everything that happened in respect to like people talking about how the delivery method was the photos. And again, the drug, it caused Howard to act irrationally for maybe about 15 minutes, or maybe a little bit longer. But then he sort of came down and from it, and again, just kind of everything went according to plan. The sort of great scene of them reshooting everything, and again, everything just seems sort of, it's just kind of, oh, this is just another episode, just another Jimmy and Kim scam, just like we've seen over the course of this season. Things are going according to plan, and everything will be fine. And like Kim said, it's just tearing down one lawyer. It's no big deal. But like I talked about at the end of this, excuse me, at the beginning of this stream, the chickens definitely came home to roost for Jimmy and Kim. And, all the sort of the tempting fate, the flying too close to the sun, the sort of the hubris of, thinking they can just get away with anything, it really kind of sunk them in the end. And, I don't know what happens here. I don't know what they do. I mean, I forgot who said, someone in the super chat. I forgot already. I apologize. I'll have to go back and look, but maybe I can find it here possibly. No, I don't actually know, actually. But yeah, someone speculated again. I apologize for the name slipping me about maybe trying to pin Howard's death as a suicide. A very dark storyline there for sure. I mean, again, a ballistic, it's kind of like, that's kind of tough there for sure. Again, I wonder, in a sort of forensic sort of thing, if someone is found dead in your house and like, you have this sort of sordid history with them and then you claim suicide, I feel like it'd be kind of hard to prove that. They can definitely tell by like the way the bullet enters, the body. And again, I feel like we're getting kind of dark here in respect to, speculating on how they would pin Howard's death as a suicide. But my goodness, you wonder how they get out of this. Like that's the big question for me, is how in the world do they get out of this? Because we know that Saul does, but the question is how does Kim get out of this as well? So Mike at Agent Neptune, Mike has a hell of a job to clean up. Oh my, you would imagine that that maybe so that Saul would call Mike. But again, seemingly, Lalo wants to know about Mike from Saul. And Lalo, again, it seems like Lalo doesn't really have a purpose for them after, he tells them information, but they're both going to live after this conversation. So what does Saul say here that, gives Lalo enough information to leave, seemingly, and for Saul to be unharmed? And it's crazy. We only have 6 episodes left, for crying out loud. So, and again, with the whole sort of, again, the Sandpiper Crossing thing, that sort of all gets lost in the wash here. Like, yeah, Saul gets his $1 million and, everything's a success. And again, it sort of had to end this way because we only have 6 episodes left. And we can't drag on that storyline forever. So, it's, it just kind of made sense that it had to come to a conclusion here. So, at John C. again, that's the great question, man. Again, I don't know. I don't know why he saw Jimmy and Kim, but it was apparently part of his plan. I surmised maybe Michael. Maybe it's Michael, but again, like if he tells him about Michael, Lalo's not going to want Saul to then tell Michael that he's coming. So again, like with everything just kind of going absolutely crazy in the first 3 episodes with a spoiler alert. Come on, Nacho's death. And then the next ones, we can kind of know where things are going here. We can kind of see things sort of, coming along here. But then with this just absolute twist that happened at the end of this episode, there's just a lot. We just finished watching it like half an hour ago. There's definitely a lot of questions without any concrete answers. And again, it's not like we're going to get the answer on Monday. We're going to get the answer in 7 Mondays from now. So a lot of time to think about it. So at Will K, this was sheer horror. Yeah, that was something right there. At Alex Wolf, we want Bill Burr. Yeah, Bill. Yeah, there's only 6 episodes left. That's a whole nother thing. But again, it's like Bill Burr's appearance. It's like hopefully going to happen. But again, with this ending right here, my goodness. At the Sobieski, every death feels so real. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Just the way they sort of just built up these characters. Even with Howard Hamlin introducing the fact that he has a wife, sort of, humanizing him even more, sort of setting him up and sort of developing even this more of a backstory to him, talking about how he's had a tough, despite the fact, like you said, like I know, like, yes, people think I'm a jerk because, oh, my dad helped me get to where I was. I was born, likely wealthy or upper middle class or something like that. Let's take him down a peg. He deserves it. But people like that, he was dealing with his own demons. He talked about having depression, and he talked about his marriage falling apart with him having to sleep in the guest house. So again, it's like I mean, the writing is just unbelievable writing. So I apologize again. I'm really bad with names, so it's Sobieski. Sobieski. Okay, from now on, I'll try to get it right at the Sobieski. Okay, I apologize for that. So yeah, I mean, just unbelievable. Again, I started to worry for sure when they started developing Howard Hamlin's backstory over the course of the season. I'm like, oh, this doesn't seem to be setting up very well. In kind of the same respect where we got a lot of Gail Bedecker in hindsight of that last episode, Full Measure. Where we got to see more of his backstory and sort of more of his quirky personality and his music interest and the sort of the place he lived. All this sort of was built up, and then again, it made the fall just so much harder. And it seems to be sort of the case here with Howard Hamlin as well. So yeah, at the Mr. Snyder, yeah, the HHM storyline is a whole nother thing. All those people who work, for Howard and genuinely care about him, for him to just die. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do here. I mean, maybe they'll make it look like he disappeared. I mean, it is sort of very coincidental how he had this big embarrassment, and maybe that Jimmy and Kim, like some people said, will try to pin it as a suicide or try to pin it as he maybe skipped town or something. I mean, just left everyone high and dry. I mean, it's quite the conclusion. So yeah, at Mendoza's Coyote, yeah, HHM is doomed. Yeah, it definitely doesn't look like it's going to sort of stay the course there for sure. And yeah, I mean, when Chuck died at the end of season 3 of Better Call Saul, I definitely didn't see this coming for his partner Howard Hamlin. So at Richie MC, what a point there. How much pro bono work does Kim do to make up for the guilt? My goodness, what a comment there for sure. Yeah, again, I've talked again. I feel like I've talked about this again and again about Kim bending the sort of more like the her moral compass sort of shifting from way to way. But how does she sort of come to terms with this? This is the big question here. Again, I'm definitely gonna have to rewatch that last scene too of just Jimmy and Kim's reaction to Lalo entering that house. And yeah, Howard, wrong place at the wrong time. Just man, what an ending. I mean, just unbelievable writing here. Just what a story. What a way to culminate this half season. And I hope, all the people who were sort of, maybe sort of, taken aback by the sort of pace and all of the backstory and the sort of setup plot that we saw over the course of, Hit and Run and Black and Blue and Axe and Grind. I mean, I hope the payoff was worth it. So at full hay one, Howard's head hitting the corner like Chuck again. If that happened again, it's sort of again. I have to rewatch it, but if they did that again, very unbelievable literary sort of parallel right there for sure. I missed that for sure. And in the end, I mean that was not a figurative red herring at all. About that picture of Howard Hamlin with that red stuff on his head. I mean, they absolutely, I guess, sort of leaked it on purpose. I don't know. I mean, I made a video about that about how like I guess, the logical thing was that, a lot of people said, is this his death right here? And Howard Hamlin even did in the Instagram live post about, oh, that Jimmy McGill, he's going to be the death of me. And sort of making that sort of face where he's sort of giving it away, sort of like making it seem as though he gives it away. And yeah, like I talked about earlier, and someone made the Ozymandias comparison. Absolutely right. It's amazing just the sort of parallels in the characters like Hank Schrader and Howard Hamlin, characters who on the surface just couldn't seem further apart from each other. But, the deaths are kind of parallel to an extent about how, even though Saul and Walt didn't pull the trigger, their actions were definitely they were culpable with their actions in many respects. So yeah, he used that silencer after all. So again, yeah, a lot of people surmised he would get back to New Mexico, and again, we didn't see how that happened. Again, we just don't have time with there only being 6 episodes left in respect to the very sort of calculated sort of step by step process in respect to the storyline. So yeah, at Joe Blow, I'm definitely gonna go back and rewatch that scene. I just have to again. I only saw it once, but I definitely need some more sort of reactions to. I need to re-see that reaction of Jimmy and Kim when Lalo came in. So yeah, at Deb's Cormos, yeah, getting kind of pulled out the the wire there. But yeah, again, yeah, and it's the Greek parable, hubris, Icarus. I mean, so again, yeah, they really sort of flew way too close to the sun. Really sort of got too big for their britches, and really sort of again, it's like all Walter White's actions. Again, he sort of was able to cover up his tracks. Protect his family. Everything seemed okay, but again, some things are just out of your control. Again, it kind of like, despite the fact that Vince Gilligan talked about how he didn't like the fact that that one scene in Caballos and Nombre where the audience knew information that Walter White didn't when the cousins came to kill him, or were attempting to kill him. Just one of the things I loved about that scene in hindsight is that even no matter how much you plan, no matter how much you plan for all of the bad things that can happen in life, and it's the same thing. Jimmy and Kim probably went over this plan again and again and again and again. We didn't miss anything they said. In the same way, it kind of reminds me of the train robbery in Dead Freight, where the amount of times that Walt and Jesse and Mike and Kuby and Todd probably went over that train robbery. They probably again and again and again, they practice, planned for every contingency. But again, they could not plan for Drew Sharp driving up on his motorcycle and then, Todd shooting him. So again, that's the thing I loved about that scene about, Walter White, despite the fact he was so intelligent, he was able to, work his way out of so many situations. That scene of the cousins coming to kill him is just a reminder that there are certain things in this world that are just out of our control, and no one can be in control of everything. So again, didn't that one, military philosopher like von Clausewitz talk about that a little bit, about how there's like, the planning of war on a map is completely different from when it's executed in the battlefield, because there's sort of like friction, and there's sort of like, just think, like I said, there's like contingencies you just can't plan for on the paper. Like Jimmy and Kim, they could not plan for it. Well, what if Howard shows up and then Lalo comes in the same time and shoots him in the head? I mean, there's no way you can sort of materialize that theoretical situation on the back of their painting on a post-it note. You just can't. In the same way Walter White couldn't theorize a kid driving by on his motorcycle, and what do we do with this contingency? I mean, they're so out there, and you could do like, they're so like, oh, they're so the percentage is just so small. It's like how we can't even think about that. But these things do happen in life, and just it's an unbelievable sort of culmination to Howard Hamlin's storyline for sure. Just yeah, I mean, unbelievable writing. At Mendoza's Coyote, that's right. I mean, I do see those posts on Reddit about characters who never interacted with each other, and that is a great point right there. This episode is the who was that said? Yeah, at Mendoza's Coyote, the one and only scene that Howard and Lalo ever had with each other. That is a very true point. Again, and I don't know who had that in the death pool. If you said Lalo kills Howard, my God, what a pull there. What a guess there if you had that for sure prior to this season. I definitely did not. That was something. So Alex Wolf, Truck trying to warn us. Yeah, I mean, definitely go. I mean, Chuck, that sort of painting there, that talk about in hindsight some symbolism there of sort of Howard looking at Chuck's painting and just going back to everything that Chuck said. Again, I can't even like pull them all off the top of my head, but just all of the warnings that Chuck gave to Jimmy about this is not a game. People get hurt. Uh, slipping Jimmy with law degrees like a chimp with a machine gun. This is not a game. Yeah, it's absolutely true. Just going back and listening to, just rewatching now. All you can go back and rewatch season 3 and 2 of and 1 of a Better Call Saul, and just sort of listen to sort of Chuck's warnings. And he was, again, in many ways, he was absolutely on the money. Again, it's something I've talked about in the past about how was it Chuck's disapproval of Jimmy which caused him to go down that path, or was he right all along? If he despite even if he hired him at HHM, and if he didn't sort of push him out the door, would Jimmy have done all these things anyway? A lot of people surmise that the only reason that Jimmy did these things is because Chuck didn't approve of him. And Chuck should have just said, it's no big deal. I'll hire him at HHM. I'm being ridiculous. These are just little pranks, no big deal. But I did surmise, part of me initially thought, Chuck was kind of right all along. And it is, I'll definitely have to go back and sort of all sort of Chuck's warnings now talk about just have just a different level of meaning. And just, it is true. Even though Chuck didn't appear on screen, I forgot who made that comment about Chuck was right. It might have been, again, I missed the comment there. I saw it, but someone said Chuck was right. I believe Alex Wolf. Chuck tried to warn us, and absolutely he did. And even though he didn't appear on screen, his presence was felt. And that one, talk about that symbolism there now in hindsight of him just of Howard looking at that painting in the HHM conference room. So At and Ben, I agree completely. Amazing episode, and I imagine this one will be rated higher on IMDb. Again, take that with a grain of salt. Again, maybe I should really stop paying attention to IMDb. Maybe it's really not really that useful in hindsight. But that's an interesting point at Blake Schreckenbach. Yeah, about the toxicology report. Again, I mean, despite the fact that, maybe the cocaine or whatever drug that was in the system couldn't be used as an alibi to like sort of justify his suicide, as some people speculated, you know, I suppose, just the grief of it, just sort of, emotional grief or something to that effect, or pride or something. Again, we're going down a pretty damn dark rabbit hole here where, we're kind of speculating. I mean, my goodness, like I said, like I can't believe now in hindsight I had this sort of, the thought to complain that Breaking Bad wasn't dark enough in the ending, and then I my goodness, I can't complain about that now in Better Call Saul. I mean, this is even darker than I thought it would be. Yes, at the Mr. Snyder, Howard was drinking, kind of akin to sort of anyone who's seen the Shawshank Redemption, sort of how like Andy Dufresne was drinking in the car before he was going to sort of murder his wife, but he ended up not doing it. So yeah, I guess the sort of trope of alcohol, making people do poor decisions. So again, that's the sort of crux of it here that we're going to have 7 weeks to ruminate on, is how in the world does Saul and Kim get out of the situation? And what do they do when Lalo seemingly leaves that room? Unless Lalo's going to die in that apartment also, which I don't think is true, obviously. But yeah, how did they get out of this one? Talk about like what a cliffhanger. I mean, what a cliffhanger. I mean, seriously, how in the world do they get out of this? I mean, just an unbelievable cliffhanger for sure. So at Jay, slow build, and perfect payoff. Trust the process. I mean, yeah, I mean, absolutely. I talked about this a little bit in my live stream yesterday about how, I think a lot of people were sort of taken aback by the pace of this season, but, maybe I too sort of just, sort of what's the word I'm looking for, sort of assumed that the pace of the show would be much faster because we only had 13 episodes left. But, despite the fact that in many respects the pacing is much quicker, such as, not seeing Lalo's step-by-step process, they're still staying true to their roots in respect to a lot of character development, a lot of sort of backstory, a lot of setup in these episodes. At Marenza Sarnicki, who's IMBD. Yeah, I definitely talked about that. I'm definitely dyslexic. I definitely think I have undiagnosed dyslexia. At Marenza Sarnicki, I definitely mix up those. Acronyms are not good for me. I definitely have probably been saying that incorrectly the entire stream. So yeah, at Beetle Beetle, a lot less H and M in HHM. Yeah, all three founding partners are now deceased. Yeah, that's absolutely true. So Joseph Wong, Howard Hamlin went on a trip to Belize where Chuck and Nacho went. I mean, yeah, I mean, you talk about the Belize crew at J. So yeah, talk about that. So oh my goodness gracious. Yeah, Alex Wolf, what a pull there about how I love you. I think you meant oh yeah, I read that wrong. Love how the cockroach made Lalo think of Saul. Absolutely, what a pull there. I totally missed that. That is a great pull there about how Lalo said to Kim at MDC and Locke about how your man, he's like the cucaracha, born survivor. I did wonder what was the point of him looking at that cockroach there, but in hindsight, oh my goodness, another just unbelievable piece of writing in this episode. Great pull there, Alex Wolf, about how the cockroach made Lalo think of Saul. What a pull there. Yeah, that is just unbelievable. At Michael Curtis, what do you think of the little black and white clip at the end of the episode? Again, I don't know what you're. Again, did I miss something there? I'm a little bit confused on that one, so I apologize. Maybe I missed something. Was it in the episode or was it like a preview after the episode? I'm sorry, I missed that. At Michael Curtis. I mean, yeah, at Francis Ray. I mean, again, I hate to go down this rabbit hole, so it was a promo. Again, I missed the post credit promo. I definitely missed that. Um, I definitely missed that. There was a black and white shot of the of that. Yeah. I did see that. I did wonder. I thought that was maybe just a lead in for talking. Oh, or yeah, Saul definitely said something that was right. Yeah. I did see that in hindsight. You're right. He said something like now it's business as usual or something to that effect. So again, yeah, and sort of getting back into my again, I'm not really sure the meaning behind that. I thought that was maybe a lead into the talking Saul thing, but it definitely seems like audio from the part two of season 6. And again, I don't know the sort of black and white mantra. Again, I talked about the sort of foreshadowing about how that Kim's mom's license plate in Nebraska was very coincidentally in the color black and white. And of course, currently, who else is in black and white in Omaha, Nebraska? None other than Gene Takovic. So again, maybe a little sort of symbolism there. Again, Howard's car outside, Luke Duke. That is right. You'd imagine he drove there. Absolutely. Absolutely. That is a great pull there for sure. Again, another sort of piece to this puzzle. That is a great pull there at Luke Duke. So, oh yeah, Jay, after all that, a happy ending. Yep, that's what Jimmy said. So quite the sort of paradox based on what we just saw at the end of that episode. So yeah, I do remember that. Again, I definitely imagine it's dialogue from the next half of the season. Uh, like I said, basically kind of going back to the main premise here. Saul is getting out of that apartment. He is getting out of that apartment. Kim is too, for all intents and purposes. And that's the sort of crux of the thing: is why doesn't Lalo kill them? Obviously, it's because of continuity of the backstory of Breaking Bad, and he can't. But again, what sort of story unfolds where he doesn't kill those two characters? Where seemingly after they tell him the information, they're loose ends too. Just coup de grace and just sort of walk out of that apartment. Sort of make his escape like he's done many times over the course of this half season. But yeah, at Cinema Dave, yeah, proven incorrect today for sure. Absolutely. I think no more need to pay attention to that. So, and again, my theory was absolutely wrong in respect to maybe them appearing at the end of the very last episode of part 1 before the mid-season break. But despite the fact that I thought that was a possibility, the one big crux of that thing was, like, theoretically, if those characters were in this episode, again, that would even overshadow what was happening in the story. And again, that's sort of the big picture thing too, is when those two characters appear, you really feel like it's just going to overshadow whatever sort of storyline is happening in Better Call Saul. So that's the sort of tightrope they want to walk there in respect to those characters appearing. Because if they did appear, even in just like a scene or something like that, the story would be more about that as opposed to this sort of unbelievable ending. And there was definitely no need for those characters in this episode. Absolutely not. So, definitely didn't need them. And again, who knows when they're going to appear? Maybe they will appear in the very last episode, as many people would think, made absolute logical sense because it's just very symbolic. Why wouldn't they appear in the last episode? So, it makes a lot of sense. So, definitely can't wait to see what happens. And yeah, I can't trust IMDb anymore for sure. At the glowing unknown. Yep. What an episode indeed. What an episode indeed. I mean, just kind of worked backwards here. Sort of worked backwards in this episode, but yeah, what an unbelievable episode for sure. So apologize for that. Kind of went down. Definitely don't breathe water. You want to drink it. Oh man, that was a mistake there. I apologize for that. But yeah, just kind of like, I guess sort of just, I mean, I kind of talked about this whole episode here, but basically just to kind of give the abridged version here, kind of going very front to back this time very quickly. Lalo's back in America. He's kind of in New Mexico. We see him at that truck stop shower. We wonder, why is he there? It's then revealed to us that I guess he's showering because he said he was living in there 4 days. And, I guess he wants to shower again. Very, because he wants to be clean. Very interesting scene, though, there. A very interesting callback to the end of season 5 of Better Call Saul in the episode entitled Something Unforgivable, where I think Lalo says to Nacho that he wasn't a big sleeper. He'll sleep maybe an hour, maybe 2. And I definitely wonder if that kitchen timer, which he sets for an hour, just sort of is the literary vessel of Lalo sleeping for 60 minutes so he can then recharge his batteries again. I'm super jealous of that, by the way. If he really can function on an hour's sleep, which I think is maybe scientifically impossible, like I've definitely I've read things on sleep, and you really can't function at that, the way Lalo does and be that sort of fit and acrobatic and do everything like that. So again, I think that was the sort of literary vessel they were describing there to sort of make sense about how Lalo's doing of all this. Pretty awesome. I mean, he's pretty much a supervillain if he can never sleep, and he's an acrobat. He can jump, unbelievably high and has all these unbelievable evil genius skills. And like I talked about, he's definitely a sort of, he's on there in terms of the evil genius scale. So at Beetle Beetle, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Do you think Lalo gives his video diary to Saul? You wouldn't imagine. I mean, off the top of my head, you imagine that's for Don Eladio's eyes only. At least I think so. Again, why does he want to go to Saul? Again, Mike seems like the only thing that makes sense. I'm almost certainly wrong, because if he told him about Mike, I mean, you imagine Saul would tell Mike after that. But I'm really having a hard time squaring the circle at Beetle Beetle of how Jimmy and Kim survived the situation when they just seem like absolute loose ends who were used and discarded. But we know based on the continuity of Breaking Bad that they're going to have to. Well, at least Saul is, and you'd imagine Kim's not going to die in that same sort of continuation of that scene either. So, but no, I wouldn't imagine that Saul gets that video diary. I mean, maybe, but then again, sort of after thinking about it for more than 30 seconds, maybe he sort of asked him if he knows anything about the lab. But why would he? I mean, unless he knows that Saul knows Michael, who works for Gus. But again, I don't know how Lalo would even know that, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, maybe he would. Maybe about how did you get me out of jail, for example? Like, how did you know to get me out of jail? Where did all that information come? Who gave that to you? Did that man Michael give you that information? So maybe that's what he wants at Beetle Beetle. But again, I don't know how he talks his way out of the situation where he isn't just killed after being a loose end. That, I mean, obviously it's going to happen, and obviously the writers are unbelievable writers, and that's why they get paid the big bucks to tell that story. But yeah, I don't know if that's for Saul. Maybe he shows it to him in sort of the context that I just described. But again, we're just gonna have to wait 7 weeks and find out, Beetle Beetle. And I really appreciate the super chat. So, does Saul even deserve a happy ending? At the oh my god, I'm gonna miss your name again. At the Sobieski. Again, I talked about this in a couple past live streams as well, about how it just one of my favorite parts of this universe and the stories here is just how they take these characters like Walter White, where initially, and Walter White as an example, where like Saul Goodman, there's just so much sort of sympathy for them in respect to why they're doing what they're doing, and sort of bending the rules of morality and sort of all this moral ambiguity because of the sort of bad hand they were dealt, like Walter White with his terminal cancer diagnosis, and then him just sort of all the backstory of him just sort of never sort of taking any chances in life, and just sort of always kind of being pushed around, metaphorically speaking, and sort of not really taking any risks. But then again, over the course of the season, when he eventually does things like killing Mike, it's just like your sort of empathy for him completely changes, and your sort of question that you're asking about, does Saul even deserve a happy ending? It's unbelievable how you kind of see Saul now in a different light here, based on what he did to Howard Hamlin when we see him in Breaking Bad, where initially we would just see him as a sort of kind of just like jovial criminal lawyer who has all these crass one-liners, and yeah, he's good at his job, but he really kind of, things kind of got out of hand for him when he got involved with Walter White. He didn't really know he was getting involved with. But now with this whole backstory that we have with him, working for the cartel and Lalo Salamanca, and just seeing how his actions led to Howard's death, and eventually he's going to go about his daily life and be this person who says these unbelievable crass one-liners like, how is your brother-in-law going to go after you on his rascal scooter, and sort of laughing to himself. And just being absolutely crass and bold and brazen. But again, like I talked about in a past live stream, we've never seen Saul Goodman home alone. So we do wonder if, maybe it's all just a persona, as I speculated on in a past video. Maybe when he goes home, he sort of sheds this persona and sort of, just decompresses, and maybe thinks to himself, my God, what happened? I'm in too deep now. Like, maybe all of it is just a coping mechanism. We don't know. But yeah, it's just unbelievable. So, I mean, yeah, the way they sort of, shift your perception of characters. I mean, even like the sort of, we see Gus in a completely different light as well. Just with what he did to Nacho now, and just, it's unbelievable how, like, you're initially so drawn to all of these characters, but even Kim Wexler in many respects, it's like, you wonder if people's perceptions sort of change about her, where she kind of just, Howard, get out. You were just a pawn to be used, get out of here. I don't even care, like, everyone loves Kim Wexler. It's just unbelievable. You wonder if people's perceptions of her will change after this. That's that's a great point you raised about, does Saul even deserve a happy ending? And it just, in the grand scheme of things, the way they set up these characters, and we have so much, the characters you sort of empathize with initially, you don't empathize with at the end, and characters like Howard Hamlin, who are this Lord Vader sort of archetype initially, seemingly, you just have unbelievable sympathy for. So just great writing here. So Oh my goodness, Lalo Mendoza's coyote. Lalo's next victim is Lyle. I have seen a lot of people in the chat talk about how Lyle's not going to make it, and I kind of dismiss it as almost just sort of troll comments. But after what I just saw, where if Lalo can kill Howard, I mean, I think Lalo can absolutely kill Lyle. As dark as that sounds, there at Mendoza's coyote. So again, it was kind of almost like, oh, people are just people control in the comments. That's all good. I find it kind of funny, but who knows, man? Maybe Lyle's not long for this world either. Who knows? That is a funny point there for sure. Again, I like Lyle too. I mean, I think the actor's great. I think he does plays that character unbelievably. And talk about just another sort of again, Howard just caught up the wrong place at the wrong time. He was just caught in the crosshairs. And could that happen to Lyle? I mean, maybe theoretically. I mean, maybe Lalo goes to Lyle's house and kills him too. My God, we're going down the dark rabbit hole. So at Michael Curtis. Yeah, again, I remember this is absolutely like not hilarious, but kind of hilarious. I remember, I swear, like in the past live streams when people kind of joking about Lyle, about like, oh man, Lyle's done for. Lyle's the real sort of protagonist here, and it almost seems it's like joking, but I'm not even joking. After what happened to Howard Hamlin, you wouldn't imagine it in any capacity that Howard Hamlin was going to be the one caught up in this story. I definitely thought maybe Kai would be the sort of person who got executed here, but who knows if he's even going to appear in this series after what happened to Casper, and how basically Casper gave him all that information, so he doesn't even have to go after the other workers seemingly. So again, who knows? Maybe Lyle gets caught up in this too. I mean, I can't dismiss that as a joke anymore. As much of a joke as it seems on paper, I can't anymore. You absolutely can't. So yeah, I mean, yeah, just kind of like again. So again, that very interesting kind of plot here. Where kind of the cold opening scene kind of like it displays to us the kind of culmination of Casper's storyline, and I think that was actually very. I really kind of thought it was very well done. I really enjoyed that in hindsight, just about how just how they were able to. They didn't have to display any more of Casper's story, but they could kind of tell us anyway through this cold opening scene. Very good writing there. I really enjoyed that. At Mendoza's Coyote, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Do you remember at the end of season 5, Kim got up from bed and insinuated killing Howard? That was crazy. Good foreshadowing. Again, if you're talking about the sort of double guns that she gave, I think that was more a figurative sort of double guns, and I thought it was kind of a little bit of a callback to when Saul Goodman sort of gave Kim the double guns at the end of season 4 of A Better Call Saul. But I mean, really great point you raise about how Saul warned her. Kim, we're not talking about a bar trick here. We're talking about, people's lives, kind of, I'm a little bit editorializing here. We're talking about, we're really playing with fire here. Like this is like, we're really going to the next level. Are you sure you're okay with this? And the crazy thing is that in many respects, it looks like Saul is going to be okay with this, at least initially, just based on the way he acts over the course of Breaking Bad. And I definitely have thought about that. I mean, as people talking about how, what's going to happen with Kim, and maybe the plan goes awry, and something happens and Kim's just not okay with the sort of consequences of what they did, and it definitely seems that way for sure. So yeah, kind of foreshadowing there. Again, I don't know if that was a sort of literal double guns about how like they're literally going to kill him. I definitely don't think that was part of the plan. It was more a figurative double guns, and definitely sort of had a parallel to what Saul did to her at the end of season 4. But yeah, in hindsight, it definitely had more force. It was more symbolic than we even could have imagined when we saw that scene in season 5 of Better Call Saul for sure at Mendoza's Coyote. Yeah, just a really great point for sure. That's a very, very crucial component of the storyline. And yeah, it just who they were really playing with fire there, and it's unbelievable too because like we all, at least I thought, okay, something about the plan isn't going to go according to plan, but it's true. They were absolutely right when they had planned for everything that they could have planned for, but like I talked about earlier, there are just some things you can't plan for. It was the sort of Drew Sharp sort of ending to the storyline where they could have never in a million years planned for the contingency of Howard. They knew Howard would confront them. They even said, all right, let's get this over with. We know that Howard's gonna come in. We knew that Howard was going to come in and confront us after the storyline. Let's get this over with. That was even something they planned for, but they could never plan for Lalo Salamanca. I mean, maybe if Kim told Saul, we definitely didn't realize how big of a sort of misstep that appeared to be when Kim kept that secret to herself. And that was, she knew that Lalo was still alive, but Saul didn't. and talk about a scene there. So, and yeah, really dark where Lalo is just standing there saying to Howard, "No, go on, continue. Take your time." And and really just sort of understanding that he was going to kill him all along, and Howard just having no idea who this person is. You know, and just sort of just freezing, almost can being like a deer in the headlights when he saw that gun. I mean, when Lalo was taking out that silencer and sort of screwing it to his gun, my every thought in my head was like, turn around and run out of there, man. You gotta like at least try to run out of there. I mean, you're just sitting duck. I mean, you're probably dead anyway, but you gotta turn and book it out that door, Howard. I'm just like, in my head, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is bad. So my goodness gracious, this was what a piece of writing here. What a story. And what a total misdirect by Thomas Schnell saying this isn't going to be a true cliffhanger. This was a cliffhanger and a half, My goodness. Yeah, Love This Nation again with the whole aspect of Gus Fring never being undermined in the fact of the cartel. Like if they knew his plan if they sort of believed Lalo's story, there's no way he would have been charged of the territory in the north like he was in the plot of Breaking Bad. And sort of very interesting component here. I talk again. I don't want to repeat myself too much about how Hector knows that it was Gus because he believes Lalo. But if Gus kills Lalo and Hector knows about it, you would imagine he would tell the cousins then, and they would believe him for sure, and they would go after him for retribution. But in that meeting that happened in IFT, where Gus Fring is in charge of the North Territory, the cousins, if they knew about Lalo, they seemingly would have went after Gus Fring. So there's so much of this backstory of Breaking Bad that seemingly needs to be adhered to in terms of avoiding continuity errors. So really, sort of a very nuanced sort of story here. In respect to what's going to happen in these last 6 episodes. Will K, will Ladio make a truce? Again, it kind of goes back to the story again. I really don't know how Ladio would feel if he knew Gus Fring's actual intentions. Again, even I guess people have talked about like, okay, so what that Gus Fring tells him about, I mean, so what that Lalo tells Ladio about that structure? So what? It's an underground lab. Even Lalo said in the video himself that, oh, Gus will have a story. He'll talk his way out of it, but it's up to you who you believe. But I'm going to tell you what I know, what I believe to be the case. And, maybe he'll sort of, think, let bygones be bygones, but it's kind of implied in the plot of Breaking Bad that the cartel does not know about that underground lab. So again, a lot of nuance here for sure. Lalo even said as much in his video. So yeah, currently Lalo doesn't know the cousins are alive for sure at Henry. But the point I was trying to get at is that if Hector finds out that Gus killed Lalo, then he would likely tell the cousins and they would go after him in retribution. But they are cordial enough when they're meeting in a season 3 of Breaking Bad in the episode entitled IFT. So yeah, like I said, a lot of nuance to the backstory. You really have to sort of pay attention and rewatch the backstory of Breaking Bad, myself included, to really sort of understand, all of the sort of nuance in respect to the story. Oh my goodness, Alex Wolf, right there. Another. I mean, my goodness, these theories. I mean, Lalo will kidnap Kim and use her to make Saul do his bidding. That is possible. Taking Kim as a hostage. My goodness gracious. I mean, you do wonder. I mean, I guess it is possible to sort of explain why they take him. But then again, there is that behind the scenes filming. Apparently, spoiler alert, of a Kim outside of the law offices of Saul Goodman and Associates getting her cigarette lit. So again, maybe that sort of impacts the story. But I also heard some people saying that Lalo wrapped up his filming on episode 11. And again, I don't know. A lot of it is sort of pie in the sky here, but that is a really kind of interesting theory about, kind of forcing Saul to do his bidding, sort of having, a big amount of collateral there in respect to Kim Wexler. Again, possible, absolutely possible. Quite the dark theory, but definitely possible. At the Sobieski. Yep, I agree completely. I mean that sort of thing that they said about it not going down the way we think it is. I mean, proving us right again. They are proving themselves right again and again and again. So they will always come up with something better than our theories at the Sobieski. Yeah, yeah, very true indeed. So but yeah, like I said, unbelievable writing in respect to, having him display the cold opening scene where it told us basically everything about Casper without having to tell us what happened with Casper. Great scene. Again, great scene of a Jimmy sort of talking to that actor who just works at like kind of a Walmart equivalent. Great scene of the backstory of them, you know, executing their plan. In hindsight, great setup scene there where everything goes according to plan. Great scene, where it's also displayed to us that they were in cahoots with the PI all along, and it was part of the plan for Howard to find out about the plan that the calling cards with the prostitutes was way too obvious. Great scene of the mediation where everything goes according to plan, sort of humanizing Howard even more. The symbolism of Chuck, the sort of culmination of the Sandpiper crossing settlement. Everything goes according to plan. Jimmy and Kim sort of, celebrate and consummate the celebration. They're all really happy. Howard gets taken down a peg, but he's left standing. Everything goes according to plan. Kind of just summing up the episode here after doing it backwards. And then, Lalo kind of gives his sort of tape. He prepares to call Hector, but then he realizes the line's getting bugged, so he changes his plan. He sees the cockroach, as I believe Alex Wolf said, if I'm not mistaken. I'm so bad with names, but yeah, so as I think Alex Wolf said in the chat, he sees the cockroach, changes his plan, tells Mike the false information, which he then gives to Gus. I mean, Mike totally gets taken for a ride here. Lalo definitely, Lalo is the one who knocks at Alex Wolf. Lalo definitely fooling Mike here for sure. Sort of really getting the best of him in the sort of cat and mouse game, changing the plan here, calling Hector, sort of keeping Hector in the dark because he knows that Mike is bugging the phone lines. Seeing the cockroach, a huge piece of foreshadowing to him going to Saul Goodman. Then, of course, following this, we then see the scene of Gus at the I guess it's a sort of, again, I think it might be an elementary school in hindsight, not JP Wynn, where Mike tells him the information after, Lalo sees all the guys go off of the industrial laundry. Mike again foreshadowing the fact that they took all the people off all the soft targets. We need to go with the plan A of having you in the safe house where Lalo thinks that you're alone, because Lalo says on the phone that he's going to go after Gus. And then of course we see the scene of Jimmy and Kim, and again I'm just kind of going back and re-looking at the scene here, and then they're just in sort of absolute sort of I would say like post-coital bliss. They sort of executed their plan. They're just watching this movie. They're enjoying their evening, having the takeout and the wine, the days of wine and roses, as I sort of speculated on in a previous video, the sort of symbolism. There's sort of everything's going according to plan. They're enjoying their life. They're having a wonderful evening. Howard comes. They know the conversation is going to happen. They're like, all right, let's just get this over with so then we can go back to sort of celebrating. We know this is all part of the plan. And then Howard comes in, he confronts him, a very sort of dark scene in hindsight, and then, the unbelievable twist of Lalo Salamanca coming in at the very end. And again, it's like I talked about earlier in the stream, again, just the fact that it was, despite the fact we all kind of knew it was coming based on the title and everything that was happening, like we were so distracted, at least I personally was so distracted by the sort of Kim and Jimmy and Howard subplot that I completely forgot that Lalo Salamanca was out there, and I completely forgot about the title. So just unbelievable final episode here to end the half season. And I definitely, all the sort of build up to this was just unbelievable. The sort of having Howard and Lalo's paths cross, just, I don't think anyone could have formed if anyone made a theory video about that, or anyone theorized about that on any sort of online, on Reddit or anywhere, people would have said, man, this is kind of crazy. This theory is kind of crazy. But, it's sort of, despite the fact how outlandish it seems on paper, it works. It absolutely works. So just unbelievable sort of conclusion to the half season when all is said and done. Beetle, thank God Irene is safe. Yeah, such a wholesome sort of a wholesome character, so wholesome, just so, just someone who's just so positive, it's full of just absolute positivity, and not a bad bone in her body. And kind of her sort of presence really sort of juxtaposed the sort of very dark nature of the storyline. And again, in hindsight, really sort of tough to see that sort of interaction with, Howard and Irene, where Howard is just so good at his job. He was. I mean, it's crazy to think in hindsight, he's just so charming and personable and just so likable of a person, and just, such, so positive and upbeat as Craig Kelman described him. So again, it's just quite the story indeed. And just based on how they were just setting up Howard Hamlin, we really should have seen it coming. Again, when I was watching that scene, I'm like, what's going to happen here? Like with a candle, I'm like, is Howard what's going to happen here? How, like, he's going to die, right? But how's it going to happen? And then Lalo Salamanca coming through that door and shooting him. I mean, that is definitely not something that I was expecting. Yeah. The pictures of the frisbee, the guy holding the frisbee, that was again in hindsight, it's not as hilarious, but at the time I almost felt kind of bad laughing at that scene, but at Alex Wolf, but it was absolutely hilarious. just the way they sort of intertwined humor into this extremely dark episode was just unbelievable. So yeah, Alex Wolf, I thought that scene was absolutely hilarious as well. At full, hey, I'll be using that soda can trick with friends and family in the future. Yeah, that was kind of a cool scene as well, for sure. I really like that for sure. If that's actually true, I imagine that's based on science. So that was a great scene there, kind of a callback to Charles McGill. So yeah, Mendoza's Coyote, that candle, just unbelievable. So yeah, the PI did switch the photos at DD. He absolutely did. He showed Howard one photos and then switched them again. We don't know if he went back in the office and switched them, but he definitely switched them. And Jimmy and Kim, as he said, in a very same vein to how they would call like the company that would fix the door, and they would have their guy go there instead of the actual guy. And they did that the same thing here with the sort of PI firm where they gave sort of Howard bad information where he called the PI firm, and of course they sent over their PI instead of a PI that actually worked for the firm that Howard called. So at Agent Neptune, I think you're onto something there with the twisting of the silencer and the twisting of the soda can. The soda can. I think you're onto something there for sure. Yeah, at Hamud, that definitely was a full measure for sure by Lalo. That was not a half measure. But again, like I said, how does Saul and Kim get out of there? They just seem like loose ends, and clearly Howard has some. I mean, not Howard, excuse me. Lalo has some use for them after that conversation. So, man, Alex Wolf, you were just coming in with around this. This was Ozymandias on horse steroids. Again, I don't know if I go that far, but again, definitely akin to Ozymandias, absolutely. And excuse me. And to tell you the truth, like when I watched Ozymandias and when I remember having when Walt got in that the Ed Disappears car and drove down the road, that definitely seemed like the ending of a season to me. That the way I perceived it is like we need a whole nother season after this. This is the sort of this should have been like the end of a season here. And again, say what you will, but they ended it with Granite State and Felina, and it is what it is. But yeah, this definitely has an Ozymandias feel, and I kind of wish that Ozymandias was a sort of cliffhanger to a whole season, but it was just one episode, and we got two after that. But yeah, it definitely reminded me of Ozymandias for sure. The parallels, I mean, again, it's so similar yet so different. But yeah, definitely can see the parallels for sure at Alex Wolf. So yeah, at Luke Duke, he definitely needs them for something. Again, because of continuity, he can't kill Saul, despite the fact that he seemingly would. I mean, he's not his lawyer anymore. I mean, I don't know what use he would have for him after this, but yeah, he needs them to do something. Because of continuity, Saul is getting out of there alive. So yeah, Nick Russ. Yeah, I mean, it's really a sad ending there for sure. I mean, he had a lot of demons he was starting to work out. He was at a tough part. He was at the lowest probably point he was in a long time. And he talked about how lately in his life he was at a very low point, Howard Hamlin, in respect to his depression and his marriage problems. And he was hoping to sort of, again, I don't know how old his character was. I mean, probably like in his, early 50s, like something like that, maybe late 40s. Definitely had so much more to live, and so much, more to sort of give to the world, and so much more to live, and to sort of work out all of these sort of personal things and all of these vendettas that Jimmy and Kim were enacting against him, according to him. So yeah, it was he was at a really low point when he passed away. So again, the depths and the layers of the show just unbelievable. At Sam Slater, again, I would make it akin to more of Walt being responsible for Hank's death. I think that's a better parallel than the 737. I see what you're saying. I guess both are technically true, but I thought more of Walt being like even though Jimmy and Walt didn't pull the triggers, and Kim, they were still responsible in many regards for Howard's death and for Mike's death. So because yeah, if they didn't play with fire here, if they didn't tempt fate, and they didn't go through with this plan, I mean, yes, it's probably that Lalo would have showed up at a house, but Howard wouldn't have been there. And we know that Lalo's not going to kill at least Saul, and probably not going to kill Kim either. So Howard would have still been alive. So it's crazy how the I guess it's kind of like the butterfly effect, I suppose. I mean, it's pretty crazy to watch. Again, at Will K, that is a that's a great question or a statement that you raised there about we want to you say we want to see Lalo die in an intense way now, and I've definitely thought about this in many respects. I mean, we were kind of true in the fact how I think a lot of people kind of saw Nacho's death coming in many respects, even before this season, and they saw Howard's death coming, not in this way, but definitely thought it was possible. And I think a lot of people think that Lalo's going to die too eventually, and of course, it makes a lot of sense. And maybe it's just Occam's razor, and we really shouldn't be surmising it, but I kind of Lalo is sort of in many respects really kind of reminding me more and more of sort of Anton Chigurh, slightly different, of course, not exact parallels, but just this sociopathic, psychopathic, evil genius. And it is actually kind of again, I don't want to go off on a whole tangent here on No Country for Old Men because I know there's a lot of debate here in this of that story. Great movie if anyone who hasn't seen it. But I mean, spoiler alert here to anyone who hasn't seen No Country for Old Men. But to sort of get to the parallel here of what Will Kay said about Lalo dying in some sort of great circumstance, I definitely surmised that, maybe in the same vein, a spoiler alert, as No Country for Old Men, that Anton Chigurh doesn't die at the end of the movie. I'm wondering if maybe that's going to be Lalo's fate too somehow. I mean, you wonder if it's not possible based on Gus Fring's notorious piece of dialogue from Crawl Space in season 4 of a Breaking Bad of the Salamanca name dies with you. But part of me really wonders if Lalo's not going to die somehow. If somehow he's still out there. Again, it doesn't really make sense to me. Part of me thinks he will die in some sort of very dramatic way, as Will Case sort of speculated and said that he hopes to see. And I think a lot of people wouldn't be opposed to it as well in respect to the gun that was placed in the super lab. But again, part of me just really sort of thinks about that No Country for Old Men, about how Anton Chigurh just walks down the street with that broken arm. And again, I know I've seen a lot of debate in respect to this story. So again, I think I don't. This is just my interpretation, but like again, it kind of goes to that sort of thing about just randomness in this universe, about how despite Anton Chigurh being someone who just sort of planned for everything and was able to take care of himself and was able to sort of heal his leg when he got the gunshot wound to his when he blew up the car in front of the pharmacy. I mean, what is he going to do now with this broken arm? I mean, this arm is not going to heal properly. I mean, I know he doesn't want to ask for help from anybody. I'm really getting off on a tangent on No Country for Old Men here, but when he's walking down that road, I mean, his arm is just completely screwed, and I mean, there's nothing he can do about it. And sort of just the randomness of the universe. At least that was my interpretation of it. I know a lot of people, this is a pretty sort of contentious thing online with No Country for Old Men, but sort of it just kind of goes to this sort of randomness thing where Howard was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Again, it's kind of a long pull here to sort of make it relate back to Better Call Saul. But again, despite how outlandish it is, I mean, these things happen in life. People are at the wrong place at the wrong time, and sometimes the consequences are dire. So, I really like the ending of how it's just unbelievable story writing. Despite how on paper it just seems so outlandish, but in the grand scheme of things, it just really makes sense to me as just an unbelievable sort of dark, culmination of Howard Hamlin's storyline. That's a great point too, Mr. Snyder. Again, it's something I've talked about in the past. Again, the fact that the lab gets built, though, you'd imagine Lalo has to die. So, it is what it is. So again, maybe there'll be a big twist in some respects. I mean, who knows? Again, I don't think anyone saw Lalo killing Howard, but it's possible, I suppose. Yeah, Alex Wolf, I don't think we've ever seen Gus use a gun. I talked about that in the past live stream. I don't think he's ever used a gun. He's definitely he has a gun in his ankle holster and he's held a gun, but I don't think he's ever shot a gun in the series of a Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul. I'm pretty sure. I think someone brought that up actually in the previous chat. So yeah, Agent Neptune was more of a metaphorical gun, though. He himself, if you're talking about him literally pulling a trigger, I don't think we've seen that in the universe of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. So again, like I talked about, a lot of nuance here based on the backstory of Breaking Bad in respect to, it's amazing now. I mean, in respect to the main characters, all we have left is Gus, Mike, Jimmy, Kim, and Lalo. I mean, two of them have already been killed off. I mean, Chuck was a main character who's been killed off. So I think those are the 8 people who have been sort of main characters, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's crazy. It's just the amount of death in regards to these main characters. So I mean, yeah, it's just unbelievable. So, I mean, even more sort of depth to the main characters than even Breaking Bad, if I'm not mistaken, or right around the same. I mean, well, actually, it's just Walt and Hank, if I'm not I mean, yeah, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I don't know who you would consider a main character in Breaking Bad, but yeah, it's and Gus. Yeah, who am I talking about? Gus died too. How could I forget? So yeah, that's 3. So it's about the same, I suppose. So yeah, so yeah, just kind of interesting for sure. So at Chris Cineros, what if Lalo and Gus never meet again and Lalo only works through Saul? So the fake out death can be his actual death, confirmation so that they don't mention again. Again, I'm a little again. It's kind of confusing for sure because I guess that phone call kind of proves. I mean, like Gus now has sort of video proof that Lalo's still alive. In respect to that, so again, yeah, there's a lot of nuance there in respect to I've even talked about when Gus Fring said, "Now the Salamanca name dies with you." Theoretically, Lalo could still be alive, but Hector knows that Hector, the sort of how do I phrase this? Like Hector, Gus thinks like Hector doesn't. Again, it's sort of like Princess Bride. Hector doesn't know that Gus knows that Lalo is still alive. So when he says that, Hector thinks, okay, this makes sense because Gus thinks that Lalo is actually dead, even though he's still alive. So to Gus Fring, the Salamanca name dies with you. And even though he was very upset, because obviously he would be when his whole family dies and the cartel dies, he would still, so it would make sense for him to be very upset and break down in tears. But at the same time, theoretically, he could know that Lalo was still out there, and it still wouldn't undermine the fact that he would feel very upset that his grandson had just been killed. So again, there's a lot of nuance here in respect to Lalo Salamanca's ultimate fate as it pertains back to the plot of Breaking Bad for sure. So again, a lot of time to ruminate on it in the weeks to come. At Capital H, I made a video about that in the past. It's very interesting about how Saul said 3 marriages. The Beachcomber Apartments, Last Stop on the Loser Train, in that deleted scene. Again, it's a little bit ambiguous, the dialogue, where he didn't say he was divorced 3 times. He just said he was married 3 times. So I mean, theoretically, when the way it was implied is that after he sort of got divorced, he lived with the Beachcomber. But based on the backstory that was presented to us in Better Call Saul, it's actually kind of implied he lived at the Beachcomber after he initially moved from Albuquerque to Cicero as a sort of temporary sort of housing, not right after a marriage. So again, you can there's going to be a lot of sort of artistic license and liberties taken with the dialogue in respect to the backstory of Breaking Bad. So at Juan Jose Telero Garcia, yeah, that ending though, yeah, that was an ending. So hey, how's it going, Josh? How's it going? At Joshua Dio Donitz again, man, I'm so bad with names. I apologize, but hey, how's it going? At Justin Cruz. I can't believe Howard is gone. I mean, I think a lot of us saw it coming eventually, but there's no way. I mean, if you surmised that beforehand, you should be buying lottery tickets because that was quite a pull there. So yeah, but I definitely didn't see that coming. And yeah, 2 main characters gone in the first half season. So pretty crazy. At Nicholas Pardo, hey, what's up? I appreciate the support. Thank you so much. At Denise Soodle, hey, what's up? How's it going? Wow, at Juan Jose Telera Garcia, do you think this is better than episode 3? That is quite a question there. Again, I mean, it's a little bit too raw to sort of formulate an opinion there. And again, I feel like there's no right answer. That's kind of a loaded question for sure. I mean, they're both amazing in their own right. I mean, it's tough there. It's kind of like I really kind of equate to what was a better episode. Was Tahajli better or was Ozymandias better? They're both unbelievable episodes. I'd be hard pressed to say one is better than the other, and it's just as subjective as who wins an Emmy, if not more so. So again, a little bit of a loaded question there. I see what you're getting at. I mean, I think definitely a 603 and 607 were without a doubt the sort of standouts of this season, and most episodes with character deaths are for sure. I mean, they really tend to stick with us. And again, they're not just sort of these very random happenstance deaths. They're very calculated, very well developed stories by Better Call Saul. So just unbelievable half season. So at Denise Sudol, you're welcome. I appreciate the super chat. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the support. I appreciate you watching the videos. It really means a lot. Thank you so much. At Bullish Woodley, yeah, def a 10 out of 10 episode. Yep, it's up there. This again. I'm still a little bit sort of in shock a little bit in respect to this episode. And the crazy thing is, despite the fact we're likely going to see a continuation of this in the very next episode, we would imagine that the very first scene of a part two is going to be Gene Takovic. So maybe they'll even pull a crazy thing where the whole episode will be about Gene. I don't think so. But then again, they didn't start this season with Gene Takovic. So maybe we'll get a whole episode of Gene Takovic first before we even get a continuation of the storyline. I guess it is possible. So who knows what sort of tricks are up the sleeves of the creators in the remaining 6 episodes of this series. Very bittersweet to say, but it's been quite the half season. And man, what an absolute sort of bait and switch there with Thomas now saying, "Oh, this isn't a typical cliffhanger. It wasn't designed to be a mid-season finale." I think he may have been outright lying, and if not, my goodness, what a cliffhanger it would have been. He said that initially. The season was supposed to be aired 13 episodes consecutively, but due to delays such as Bob Odenkirk's heart attack, they had to do a split season designation. So, what a cliffhanger episode 7 would have been if it wasn't let alone now the fact that it's a split season. So at the Mr. Snyder, definitely a Gene episode. I definitely think there will be one. And maybe, it makes a lot of sense. I don't know if it's going to be 608, but you definitely think we're going to, again, we only have 6 episodes left and we haven't even seen a whiff of Gene. And that's a whole nother storyline with a ton of other things we have to see. We haven't seen a whiff of the Breaking Bad timeline scene with Francesca from the episode entitled Quite a Ride. Maybe maybe Walter White and or Jesse Pinkman factor into that story somehow. It's possible. So yeah, so much story, so little time, seemingly. And as Jimmy McGill said, after all that, a happy ending apparently in the that sort of preview sort of scene we got at the end of this episode. So at Joshua Donnet again, I apologize. I try to get to. There's a lot of comments. I do miss them sometimes. I apologize. Sometimes people post things multiple times. I can get to them on the. I can't get to them all, unfortunately. But yeah, I apologize. That's a good question at Facade Games. I think they'll still go with the X and X. That makes sense. They like continuity. I would imagine this whole season is going to have a blank and blank title placement. I think for sure that that's sort of going to be a thing. So oh, Jeff, Rip H.O. Ward. Yeah, H.O. Ward, a callback to Black and Blue. Great comment there. Yeah, the fake name that he used in that boxing match with Jimmy. I almost even forgot about that storyline. It's amazing. The story was just so going along. Again, this is the sort of non-Breaking Bad subplot of Jimmy and Kim and Howard. This is the sort of non-intense subplot. That's the way it was sort of going along in this half season. But then finally this sort of the worlds collide here with Lalo Salamanca being the one who kills Howard Hamlin. Definitely didn't expect it. So yeah, that's right. Despite Howard saying why do you think I deserve this so much? Again, that's a great comment. Alex Wolf, again, the Charlie Hustle. He's a genuine person. And again, he talks about, sending Kim the doc review. The corporate world, I feel like that's nothing. You read accounts of people who work on Wall Street or work on these corporate law firms. Again, it's not elite. Again, you can talk about, oh, this is morally wrong. We shouldn't treat people this way in respect to the sort of corporate culture, and maybe it's outdated and stuff like that. But again, as Howard said, is that really worth what they did to him? Like, again, I don't know if it was really about that. Maybe the sort of all the sort of slights that maybe Kim felt that Howard did to her over when she worked at HHM was sort of, was part of this and part of her motivation here in respect to, who cares if we tear down one person. But, yeah, again, Howard Hamlin, he was a genuinely good person. And it was, it's a shame to see him go like this. Very good storytelling, but man, was it dark. That's a great question, Mendoza's Coyote. I mean, I kind of talked, I mean, a little bit sort of HHM's impact in all of this. And yeah, I mean, the Sandpiper case is over. So again, I mean, they finished the case there with well, my goodness, I'm slipping on Davison, Maine, and HHM, and yeah, you would imagine that the sort of law aspect of Howard Hamlin's death is going to play a part in the storyline for sure, in respect to what's going to happen to HHM and what's going to everyone's going to wonder what happened to Howard Hamlin. I mean, it kind of all goes back to sort of how they cover up the tracks of Howard's death. That's the big question there. And I mean, I would imagine that Clifford Main's reaction to that at Mendoza's Coyote will have something to do with what happens in respect to Howard Hamlin's the story behind Howard Hamlin's disappearance and death. So yeah, again, I think we're gonna have to wait and see what happens after that conversation with excuse me, after with Jimmy and Kim and Lalo before we surmise how Clifford Maine will be impacted by it. But I really appreciate the support of Mendoza's Coyote. Sorry, just kind of going through the comments here a little bit. At non nobis solum, I knew it. Uh, Again, I'd be better pressed if you told me what you knew. If you knew that Lalo was going to kill Howard, then good call for sure. I definitely didn't see it coming, man. You're a smarter man than I at non nobis solum. Good call on that if you knew that. So thank you so much for the super chat, man, and all the support you give to this channel. It really means a lot. I appreciate it, non nobis solum. Thank you so much for the super chat. And again, I'd be better pressed if you told me what you knew, but I think I know what you're getting at. So at Nick Russ. Thank you so much for the super chat, man. In season 4, episode 1, Howard, Jimmy, and Kim talked about Chuck's death in her apartment. Now the three of them were there in her apartment again, and Howard dies. Cool little subtle callback. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's a lot of sort of callbacks here. I definitely think that was, it is definitely a callback to that for sure about how they were kind of talking about Chuck's death, and now Howard Hamlin dies in Kim's apartment. At non Nova Solum said I knew it, but I mean, if there's a video out there that predates this episode, like weeks prior to this, and someone said Howard Hamlin is going to be shot in the head by Lalo Salamanca in Kim Lux's apartment, that is a hell of a pull there. But yeah, absolutely a subtle little callback. I definitely think there was a lot of sort of callbacks and references and sort of again, even as I believe, again, Alex Wolf, I think, made that great comment about how Lalo saw the cockroach and then immediately thought of Saul and then went to Saul and Kim's apartment. So again, a lot of sort of references here where Lalo said that Saul was akin to the cucaracha, the cockroach, the born survivor. So yeah, a lot of very great callbacks here in this episode. And it definitely felt like the final sort of, the way, again, as a, Thomas Schnauz was definitely lying to us. This definitely was a mid-season finale in all respects. This him saying, "Oh, this isn't a traditional cliffhanger." That was absolutely a lie. This is a cliffhanger and some. And yeah, absolutely a lot of sort of callbacks here, and that's a great point there at Nick Russ. And I really appreciate the super chat, and I really appreciate all the support that you give to this channel. It really means a lot. Thank you so much. Ooh, man, yeah, sorry, just going through the comments here a little bit. Yeah, definitely. Someone commented earlier, sorry I missed it, about how Mike didn't get a goodbye to his granddaughter after his before his death. Sorry, I missed that comment there again. The comments are coming in quick. I apologize. I'm Yeah, Michael Curtis. I was actually looking for that comment. Yeah, it's kind of, in hindsight, Howard, Howard at least got to punch Jimmy in the face, and maybe well deserved in hindsight that boxing scene. So good pull there for sure at Curtis. I was looking for that comment. And sorry, there's another comment here about Mike's granddaughter. I was trying to, again, they're coming in quick. I'm trying to find it here. Here we go. Was that Juan Jose Tolero Garcia? I think that was the comment. But yeah, again, I mean, another extremely dark death here in respect to Howard Hamlin and and Mike Ehrmantraut. A lot of very dark sort of deaths in this show. Even characters like Andrea sort of leaving Brock behind. I mean, just man. I mean, in hindsight, I really kind of seem sort of out of place with saying how like Breaking Bad, I didn't find the ending dark enough. I don't know. I just felt like I don't know. I just kind of was like a little bit sort of taken aback. I really didn't expect that open ended sort of ending with Jesse Pinkman. And it was kind of sort of sort of concluded, but kind of the same thing in El Camino. But yeah, I mean this has been a quite the change of pace here. Now, I wouldn't even say change of pace, but just quite the sort of exemplification of the sort of very dark nature of this universe. And yeah, it's like still coming down from this episode for sure. So sorry, I think I missed this super chat at Mill Lubnikow. Hi, what will Jimmy tell Lalo that is of interest? That's a great question. Again, thank you so much for the super chat. I think I missed it. I apologize. But I definitely think it has something. Again, I've surmised this a little bit earlier. Again, I don't know at Mill Lubnikow. Maybe it has something to do with Michael. I can only imagine what else would be. Maybe asking if he knows anything about the super lab. I mean, he was looking at the industrial laundry. He saw Michael. He saw the cockroach. He went to Saul Goodman at Mill Lubnikow. Maybe he's going to ask about how did you get me out of jail? Where did you find that information about witness tampering? Who gave that to you? Was that Michael? Maybe that has something to do with it. At Mill Lubnikow, I don't know. Great question for sure. I surmised on it a little bit earlier. And again, I've talked about I don't know how in the world that Saul gets out of that apartment, but he will. And again, we're gonna have to wait 7 weeks to find out. And I really appreciate the support, and I really appreciate all the super chats, Mil Lubnikal. I really do. Yeah, at Bradley Marzare. Oh God, I'm on this name. At Brandley Mazarigos. Again, I apologize. Yeah, I think it's pretty implied that he killed Casper. I think he's referring to Casper when he said the Croatian, if I'm not mistaken. At Bradley Mazarigos. Again, I really apologize for that name. I'm really sorry. I'm really bad with names. I apologize. But yeah, I think it's pretty implied that he killed Casper. And again, I thought that Lalo was gonna get it. I mean, I thought Kai was gonna come in the storyline for sure. But I surmised if Casper told him everything, he could just go back to the U.S. and he did. So maybe Kai doesn't come into the storyline. I think a lot of people thought he would for sure. I think there may be some sort of leaks kind of floating out there that may have been red herrings in hindsight. I don't want to get into it too much, but I definitely thought that Kai was kind of a goner. Maybe he still will. I mean, I wouldn't imagine that he's going to come into the storyline now. I mean, he's back in Germany. I mean, yeah, Casper was Croatian at Beetle Beetle. I mean, is Lalo going to go back to Germany to get Kai again after already going there? I'm not so sure, but yeah, it's quite the pull here. So At Tank Dog Zation. Yeah, I'll have to go back and rewatch the sort of ominous music that was playing that you said kind of parallels Breaking Bad. Again, definitely have to rewatch that scene for sure at some point. So, excuse me, I apologize. They'll frame Howard's death as a suicide. Sonic 85. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people speculate that. It makes a lot of sense. So again, they have to get out of that situation somehow. You do wonder if after Lalo sort of leaves, he just kind of leaves Howard's there and kind of says your is Howard leaves Howard's body there and kind of says your problem. So you know, I do wonder what's gonna happen there for sure. So yeah, at Jeff, that candle flicker though. Talk about it. And yeah, again, man, I was like, "What's the symbol?" There's definitely, I mean, I was like, literally, my mind was going to the craziest places. I'm like, "Is Howard's like jacket going to catch on fire or something?" I mean, what's going to happen here? And totally, completely off base again. The thoughts that were going through my mind again. Lalo Salamanca was the last thing on my mind, which just made it such a surprise when it kind of came in. So that's a great point. Sonic 85, his car is there. So again, that is kind of, why would Howard go to their place to commit suicide? As that's very suspicious, especially with all the sort of backstory. And if Howard they find out about Howard's death, then of course Clifford Maine is gonna, remember all the insinuations that Howard brought up about Howard Hamlin as well. So there's that whole other storyline there too. So again, all those insinuations about Jimmy. So again, it's very. I mean, to think that Jimmy's gonna. It is true that Jimmy's gonna be, get off the hook morally speaking, completely. At least criminally speaking. Excuse me, criminally speaking. But it's very suspicious. I mean, from like a forensics team where you have this dead body, the person drove here, and then he ends up dead. And you said he killed himself. Maybe some people say they heard talking or something in the apartments next door. So yeah, just a crazy scene there for sure. So I'll definitely have to sort of, I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch this episode and sort of, kind of ruminate on it before I, make any like grand predictions about what happens next. So they'll take his car to the desert at John Dome, and yeah, you do wonder what's gonna happen. You do wonder what's a lot of sort of track covering up that needs to happen, and definitely after seeing Breaking Bad, you can see Saul sort of saying, "All right, this is the hand we're dealt. We have to do this." But Kim Wexler, kind of just going back to her character again, this seems like a bridge too far here. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she's more of Saul Goodman than even Saul Goodman is here, and she's willing to cover up the tracks. But it definitely seems like something here for sure that is just a bridge too far for Kim Wexler for sure. Yeah, add B Hornig too. When Lalo started to put that silencer on that gun, every thought in my head was like, Howard, you got to tail it out of that apartment ASAP. That's a great point too. Jinx, that's me. That's a great point about how Kim knew all along. So you wonder if that conversation is going to happen. Like, why didn't you tell me about the fact that you knew he was still alive? That's a really great point. That's likely going to come into the story as well. Again, at Denise Soodle, I saw. I apologize if I missed that in the chat. Again, I don't. There's a lot of comments. I don't get to all of them, but yeah, you do wonder. I mean, yeah, in respect to Kim's react, yeah, that's definitely going to be a part of the storyline. But I guess I wasn't. I was. I guess the sort of the more specific sort of part of that storyline that I guess I forgot to overlook, or I overlooked, was the sort of that actual sort of confrontation happening, the actual conversation in and of itself, as opposed to just the sort of theoretical sort of premise of it. So at Kirby, I still have not recovered from that MF ending. That is yeah. I mean, I'm still sort of still sort of coming down from it. So yeah, low key T4 president. Yeah, Howard just wanted some answers. Damn, yep, wrong place, wrong time. Unfortunately, if he just sat on it one more day, said I will confront them tomorrow, or even an hour later or an hour before, he would have made it. But again, these things happen in life. Oh, Denise Soodle, I got you. All right. Like I said, as outlandish as it seems on paper, these things happen in life. Unfortunately, people are at the wrong place at the wrong time. These sort of 1 in a million, 1 in a billion coincidences do happen to people, unfortunately. So, I mean, maybe if you use it too much as a literary vessel in the series, maybe it becomes redundant or just overplayed as a sort of literary vessel. But I really just sort of I really buy the storyline. I really sort of I enjoy it for what it is, despite how dark it is. Unfortunately for Howard Hamlin. And again, just kind of going back to Lalo Salamanca, that just sort of just evil genius, just how calm he was there. Just sort of like, how calm he was, just knowing he was about to kill Howard. And of course, they go crazy. Speaking of which, at Coach B or Rip Howie. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Howie, kind of a callback to the prostitutes that Jimmy sent to his business lunch. I mean, as funny as that scene was in many respects, it's pretty damn dark to see with those prostitutes calling him Howie. So again, you wonder if anyone else ever called him Howie besides those prostitutes. Again, I really appreciate the super chat, by the way, at Coach Beer. Thank you so much for the support that you've given this channel. I really appreciate it. But yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought there. I appreciate it, but yeah, just going back to Howard Hamlin and sort of, his death again. I kind of lost my train of thought there. I kind of got distracted there, but what was I talking about? But yeah, Howard at the end of the episode with Jimmy and Kim about have you? Oh yeah, just about the sort of the coincidences in the universe, I suppose, and about how I guess it gets played out if it gets done too much. But yeah, it is what it is. So with Howard Hamlin, so quite the ending. So oh yeah, now I remember. So yeah, going back to Lalo Salamanca, excuse me, everyone, but just going back to the sort of evil genius that Lalo is on. I mean, maybe sort of in the greatest evil geniuses of all time kind of category with what we've seen in this season, at least in my humble opinion. But just with how calm he was, just saying like, "Oh, take your time," just like again, it's an unbelievable skill where he just comes across as so sort of trustworthy and so unthreatening. When Howard saw him there, he's like, "Oh, he's just this guy. He's unthreatening. I don't have to worry about him." It's just the skill of him, but there's so much danger around Lalo Salamanca that just the sort of just unbelievable, excuse me, like sociopath that he is. Where and after, of course, when he shoots him with when Kim and Jimmy have an absolutely natural reaction of just going absolutely crazy, he just like, all right, calm down, he's just totally calm. He's like, we're just gonna have a little talk, just unbelievable, just the level of just this. I'm stumbling on my words here. Just unbelievable level of psychopath that Lalo Salamanca has been sort of his character has been developed into over the course of this season. Unbelievable. So at Agent Neptune, thank you so much for the super chat. Mad props to Patrick Fabian. Peace. Yeah, unbelievable. Sort of, really, I really enjoyed him as an actor. I wasn't familiar with him before the series, but I've really enjoyed him. And to tell you the truth, I wouldn't mind seeing some projects that he's been in. I know he did that movie where he was like a sort of rideshare driver. I haven't seen it. I don't know too much about it, but I may watch it after this, to tell you the truth. I mean, yeah, mad props to him for sure. And yeah, for sure, man. Definitely a sort of great sort of it was kind of funny. I remember at that sort of Paley Fest at Agent Neptune, like someone asked Michael Mando about, how his storyline. Did you think that your storyline wouldn't go the direction you initially thought it was when you took this role? And I imagine that Patrick Fabian feels the exact same way when he, took this role as the sort of lawyer, this sort of, this hot shot sort of corporate lawyer who was winning at life and sort of, Jimmy's adversary. I mean, I couldn't think he could even imagine where the story would go for Patrick Fabian. So great point, or just, yeah, mad props to Patrick Fabian for sure. And I really appreciate all the support, Agent Neptune. Thank you so much for the super chat. And also missed this one here at Just Me. Thank you so much for the super chat. Anyone else notice Howard's blood splatter on the same painting Jimmy kept? He would be seen being carried around in 601 opening. Why would he keep that? Well, I did not see that initially. That is a great point there. I'll have to go back and rewatch that. If the sort of splattered pattern or the splatter pattern, I don't know if that's the right word, but the sort of splatter from the blood ended up on that painting, I missed that. If that was of something they displayed in that episode, I'm definitely going to have to go back and rewatch this episode again. Really kind of interesting point you put there, and thank you so much for the super chat at Just Me. I really appreciate it. At Lalo, at Beetle Beetle. Yeah, I guess, yeah, you wonder why he wouldn't videotape Castro's confession. Maybe he didn't have one. Maybe he didn't have a camera. Maybe he didn't bring it with him. Maybe he didn't plan for that contingency. That is an interesting point, though, at Beetle Beetle. But yeah, maybe he just didn't have a camera with him. So at Denise Soodle, if you're rewatching that and seeing that, I'll definitely have to go back and rewatch that at some point. What at Just Me said. in the super chat. I'll definitely have to go and see if that and rewatch that scene. I definitely missed that at first watch. I wasn't looking at the painting. I was more just unbelievably shocked by the ending. So, ooh man, what an ending! My goodness. So, anyway, I think I'm gonna have to wrap it up here. Yeah, I mean, a lot of thoughts going on in this episode. Definitely gonna have to decompress for a little bit before I rewatch this. This was a heck of a scene. I may have to decompress just to get back to sort of neutral here. I'm just still sort of thinking about this episode so much, but yeah, I really appreciate everyone for tuning in tonight. I really appreciate the super chats. I really appreciate everyone pointing out things that I missed initially after watching this. This was an unbelievable episode, an unbelievable culmination to this half season. I really appreciate everyone for tuning in tonight. I really appreciate all the super chats, the supports. Really means a lot. I really appreciate everyone for tuning in tonight, for watching the stream. At Smokeless Choice, quite the shocker indeed in respect to this ending. So just having Lalo and Howard come to blows. I mean, never would have expected that prior to the season of Lalo being the one to kill Howard. But yeah, I'm definitely planning on making some videos in the week to come. Maybe we'll do another live stream of this week to just discuss this episode a little bit further. Definitely maybe possible. During the mid-season break, we'll see what happens. But definitely planning on making some videos about this episode in the days to come this week. And like I said, really appreciate everyone for tuning in. Thank you so much, and have a great day tomorrow and the rest of your night. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. See you around.